In this video, I'll go over setting up two-factor authentication with a hardware security key, specifically macOS Touch ID, to access DSM on a Synology NAS. There are a few requirements to use a hardware security key as part of a two-factor authentication setup that I'd like to go over. The first is to make sure you are signed in with your Synology account. You can check if you are by going to Control Panel, then Synology Account. Here, I'm currently not signed in, so I'll click on this link here to bring up the Synology login page where I'll sign in. Now, DSM confirms that I'm signed in properly. The next requirement is that access to DSM needs to be done through HTTPS using a valid domain name. This requirement can be fulfilled by setting up DDNS within DSM by navigating to External Access, then DDNS. Here I'll click Add, and for Service Provider I'll select Synology. I'll then enter in a host name I'd like to use and check the box to get a certificate from Let's Encrypt and set it as default. I'll test the connection, and if all goes well, I'll click OK to complete the setup. I'll click OK again on this warning window about the change to the default certificate, and after the web server is restarted, DDNS should be all set. You'll also need to allow access to your Synology NAS through your router via port forwarding. Here is a screenshot of the port forwarding rules I've set up on my router, where I'm allowing external access through ports 5000 and 5001 to the corresponding ports of the internal IP address of my Synology NAS. For additional details on DDNS and port forwarding, I have a video that covers the topic in detail, which I'll link to in the description below. The last requirement is a compatible hardware security key. This Synology knowledge base webpage, which I'll link to in the description below as well, displays USB security keys that are supported. Also, Windows Hello and macOS Touch ID are supported as well, and as mentioned earlier, I'll be using macOS Touch ID as the hardware security key that I'll demonstrate setting up and using in this video. Now we're ready to configure two-factor authentication with a hardware security key. To get started, I'll make sure to connect to DSM via HTTPS through the DDNS hostname that was set up earlier on port 5001. I'll then log in with the account that I'd like to set up with two-factor authentication. Next, I'll click on the person-shaped icon in the upper right corner of the DSM interface, then select Personal, which brings me to the Account tab. Here I'll select two-factor authentication, then from this window I'll select Hardware Security Key as the second sign-in step, enter in my current password on this verification pop-up, and click OK. For key type, I'll select Touch ID/Face ID, then click Next. I'll then allow Touch ID by touching the sensor on my MacBook and click Next on this Add an Alternative Sign-in Method window. I'd recommend using Synology's Secure Sign-in app for time-based one-time passwords, which you can install by either scanning the QR code listed here on screen or from either the Apple App Store or from the Google Play Store. I'll continue by clicking Next and scan in the QR code using the Secure Sign-in app on my iPhone. I'll then enter in the 6-digit one-time password for verification, then click Next. From this backup email settings window, I'll click Setup, and for email provider, I'll select Google, then click Next. I'll enter in a sender name from this window, then click Next once again. Here I'll click on Authenticate, then from this window I'll choose the Gmail account I'd like to use. This then brings me here where I'll click Allow to enable Synology personal notifications using my Gmail account. Next, I'll agree to this Synology Synomail notification, and now we see that authentication was successful with Gmail, so I'll click Apply. I'll then enter in a backup email address, click Next, and then Done. At this point, two-factor authentication is turned on with either Touch ID or a one-time password as the second step in the authentication process. Now I'll test things out by signing out. Then, when I sign back in, after entering in my username and password, I initially get prompted to enter in a verification code or one-time password. What I'll do is click on the Try Another Sign-In Method link, then select the Use a Hardware Security Key option. At this point, I can continue to log in by using the touch sensor on my MacBook to complete the login process with Touch ID. Note that other hardware security options are set up in a similar way as macOS Touch ID. Also, if you are interested in other ways to securely log in to your Synology NAS, check out this video listed here on screen. Lastly, consider supporting my work by checking out the Support This Channel section in the description below. Thanks so much for watching.